Okay, I want you to take notice that this area inside the receiver is called the thumb groove. This spot right here, you're going to see why in a second. I'll show you. But the St. Marie mount mounts to the thumb groove of the rifle. It does not alter the rifle in any way, shape, or form at all. Now, the only complaint that I have with the St. Marie mount, you'll notice that I have some good high-quality millet steel rings. But these rings are actually designed for a .22 caliber rifle. If you look at the base, you'll see that it's the 3/8 dovetail style. So that's the only downside to this mount, is you're going to have to buy a sturdy set of rings so the scope ain't bouncing all over the place. I don't know if you guys saw my original K31 videos where I was shooting this scoped gun, but the groups were kind of acting funny and stuff. It was because I used the rings that came with the mount, and those rings are garbage. You have to buy good quality steel rings. Make sure you lap the rings and everything's mounted properly. You got to mount the scope properly. But you do that, and these guns, I'm about to show you some groups, but these guns are outstanding shooting guns, and I'm about to show you. I want to show one more angle of the rifle in terms of the way the scope offsets from the side of the receiver. Let me change the angle. Okay, here's the shooter's view of the K31 with the St. Marie scope mount and the mounted scope attached. I want to make a note that these rings are windage adjustable rings that Millet sells. If you look down the axis of the rifle very closely, you can see that the scope almost kind of cants over to the left. I have it set up that way on purpose so that the axis of the bore is as close to being in line with the scope as possible. Now, as you can see, the scope is still offset, but it's closer to the axis of the bore, and therefore at longer distances you're going to get a little bit less of play that you're going to have to mess with to get it hitting where you want. Because you have to think, for that amount that the scope is off of the bore, you're going to have to compensate for that. And that just makes those calculations a little bit easier. So there's the scope. I'm trying to think what I haven't talked about. I'm going to show you how to load one of these with a stripper clip. I'm going to talk about the hand loading components. Well, boys and girls, if I had to come up with one word to describe the K31 Swiss, the only word I could come up with would be accurate. As this sub-MOA, sub-half MOA group testifies to the accuracy of the K31 Swiss. Okay? Reloading components for this fine caliber are readily available. Here I have the Lee factory crimp die and the 2-die Lee set in 7.5 Swiss. Brass is readily formed off of 284 Winchester. In fact, you could almost consider the 7.5 Swiss to be a 284 neck down to a 30 cal. That's essentially all it is. This is factory 7.5 Swiss brass. The case capacity is almost identical to 30-06. You can't substitute 30-06 data without being very careful, but load data is readily available for this caliber. The bore diameter on these is 308, and large supplies of readily available 308 projectiles are available. This is a 165 grain Sierra Game King. Here I have another Game King, but this is a 150 grain soft point. This is a projectile that actually produced that sub-MOA group. Okay. The powders that this gun likes are usually on the pretty quick side. You're going to have to excuse this camera work. I'm trying to get used to this camera. I like the H335 and H380. They're both pretty quick burning powders. The K31's harmonics seem to prefer the faster burning powders, but of course experiment yourself. I have used Reloader 15, which is a little bit slower, but still a good powder. So that's the reloading components. I'm going to show you how to load this weapon with stripper clips. Okay, to load this weapon with stripper clips, unfortunately I don't have any loaded ammo or anything like that, but I do have some brass that's been fired in this weapon. So I'm just going to show you. Lock the bolt to the rear. Well, it'll actually just pull it to the rear until the floor plate clicks up. And in case all of you don't know, most military rifles, the floor plate is going to lock into place anyway. By the way, I didn't really talk about the stripper clip. The stripper clip is a cardboard style stripper clip, and it has these tabs on the bottom that you push together to lock the rounds in, keeps them from coming out. So to load this thing, just put it in the top of the rifle like so. And as you'll see, it has that nice convenient area for your thumb to go. And on the other side is the thumb groove to give you a little bit of leeway there. Just push in. This falls out. The rifle's ready to go. You just chamber around. Now, let me get this brass out of here. And in terms of reloading, you just pop the mag. Okay? That's the nice thing about this. You know, just like the Enfield, you know, you can, you know, just pop the mag and then get the rounds out. And the mag is double stack mag, so they, you know, load just like any other type of rifle. Alright, I have a dummy round in the bottom here. So I'm going to chamber the first round to show you how you should chamber a round. Alright, so again, stripper clip goes in. Alright, down into the thumb groove. As you can see, the top round, or hopefully you can see, the top round is a cast bullet. Alright, now where people mess up loading this gun, excuse me, is that they don't slam the bolt hard enough. I'm going to show you the difference, but when loading a round, give it a good smart whack, like such. And the rifle's ready to go. Now, okay, this time, as you can see, the round is, or the dummy round, is attached to the bolt face with the extractor. I'm going to show you the common mistake that people make when they slam the bolt home on these. They close it, and it gets to about right there. Alright, now that may not seem like a big deal, but you'll see that it's not fully in battery. If you squeeze the trigger with this bolt out of battery, you run the risk of it firing out of battery. Okay, watch. I'm going to squeeze the trigger. Alright, if you notice, the bolt shroud rotated into the locking lugs because now, you know, the serial number's up. That's how you can tell. But if that striker would have reached that firing, or the primer before those lugs were fully locked, you run the risk of a failure of the rifle. That's really the only Achilles heel of this weapon design. So again, I'm going to show you. Alright, if it's, you know, the bolt's closed, but as you can see, if you look at the top, let me zoom in on this. Alright, as you can see, no serial number is visible. The rifle is not safe to fire. But I give the bolt a good whack. Alright, and as you can see, the serial number rotates to the top. So that should give you a pretty good overview of this rifle design. I'm going to, you know, pretty much leave it here because I'm trying not to keep this, you know, from being too long and everything, or trying to keep it from being long. One more thing you can check. I'm not going to take mine off, but both of mine have them. Under the butt plates of these guns, usually the Swiss soldiers would write down their name and unit and, like, you know, their service number, and it would be on a tag under the butt plate. That's just one of the little interesting pieces of history about these rifles, because you got to think, the Swiss took their rifles home with them and kept them, you know, on their person all the time. That way they could be called up, you know, at a moment's notice, you know. So having their, you know, tags under the butt plate, it just kept them from getting their rifles mixed up, things like that. Now, I will mention one more thing while we're on the butt plate. A lot of these butt plate, or the butt stocks, are called beaver chewed butt stocks. Like, that one's a good one. Hopefully this thing will focus. There we go. Now, see how it just seems like it's seen a lot of use? There's a reasoning for that. The reasoning for it is that when the soldiers would go into their chow halls and stuff, they'd stack their rifles in the snow, and once the, you know, snow becomes so, you know, frozen, they would have to come out of the chow hall and then kick their rifles on the butts to get them unstuck from the snow, not to mention the water damage, as you can see. So if the snow was kind of frothy, then, you know, you would get some water damage. And then some people think that, you know, with the soldiers drilling and stuff with their rifles and them banging around on the ground, I'm sure that attributes to it also. But essentially, you're going to get a little bit of, you know, beaver chewing is what people call it on the stock.